You are listening to Ghost in the Valley podcast with Al Cooley. Hello and welcome to Ghost in the Valley podcast. I'm your host, Al Cooley. Today my guest comes to me with a high recommendation from my friend Peter Broberg. The gentleman's name is Dr. Carl Elton Cook. Carl's book came out about a year ago. It's called The Mayflower Project. And I'm telling you what, you have to get your hands on this book because it's phenomenal. And we're talking on some deep stuff on this episode today. And it's not about the boat, it's about a spacecraft that travels 33,000 years away. And it is what can happen. Yes. It's a possibility. No, this actually would take him 33,000 years to get there. Over 200 generations. You're born on this craft to die on this craft, and your next generation, and so on and so on. If you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a hairdresser, then it just goes right down the line to your bloodline. That they're going to become the same thing that you were. Very thought out process. The back cover alone took him years to write. We're going to get into Dr. Carl Elton Cook's, a little about his history, being a retired dentist, a songwriter, now an author, and it's my pleasure to have him on the show today. And we did the interview at Peter Broberg's house. It was an enjoyable interview, enjoyable evening. Peter adds a few of his comments. So I'm really excited about this interview. The first part is we go into his music journey and his process of writing to the book. And you don't want to miss that part. Please, please, please get a copy of this book. It is well worth the read. I read the book. It is fantastic. So here's my conversation with Dr. Carl Elton Cook. So welcome to the show, Carl.
Thank you.
A little bit of your background. Let's go for your music first. Where was your musical influence?
My first musical influence probably was Elvis. Late 50s rock and roll. I liked Dion. Certain songs that he did stuck in my mind as a little kid. Of course, the Beatles came along and the British invasion. So it's not unlike my generation. That's kind of where it started for me.
Yeah, that was mine too. Elvis Presley. So my very first record I ever bought or owned, I should say, was "Don't Be Cruel," and I used to love to watch that little dog spin around in the gramophone record.
Well, the flip side was Hound Dog, and I wore them both out.
Right, a double side hit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that led you into becoming a songwriter, or what was that?
Well, I was writing songs before I could play an instrument. I was writing songs in my head, the melodies and the words, in probably 5th grade. I was writing songs. I couldn't even play a guitar yet, but I knew how to construct the melody in my mind. Didn't need a musical instrument.
Mm-hmm. And you think some of these earlier influences influenced you too?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the early rock and roll. I'm in a band now too, and our influences that's what we call the boomers. So emphasizing on the baby boomer era, so you don't go to a gig and people shouting out Freebird or, so they know that what they're getting, like Earth Angel and some of the 50s classics, Everly Brothers, and like you said, Elvis Presley, and going to the 60s, and the Beatles. And we step a little bit out of the room, a little bit into the 70s as well. But yeah, I think the American scene was fantastic back in the 50s. And growing, I don't know how old you are.
I'm your guys' age. I'm 69.
69. So growing up in the 50s, late 50s, and how different it was, the music scene.
Well, I was at the tail end of that. So Elvis was just huge for me. But, when the Beatles came out in 64, then the British invasion, then in America it's shifted into, you had the Motown, which I didn't like when I was a kid. I like it more now than I did then. But the West Coast became important. You had the L.A. bands, you had the San Francisco bands. Mm-hmm. So the West Coast became important.
Right. We just talked about that today at band practice. I said one of my favorite artists, my idols back then was the Big Bopper. So I remember having the white socks on and running through the kitchen and sliding across the floor, hardwood floor, newly waxed floor, and telling my mother, "Hello, baby, yeah. I'm the Big Bopper." And then I would smack my mom on the butt and run when she would chase me with a fly swatter or something, So I'll never forget the day she came into my room and said that the Big Bopper passed away, with Richie Valens and Buddy Holly. Those days, I can remember certain things from the late 50s and the early 60s, and great music scene then. And I hear that in your song, the Magpie,
which is available if you go on YouTube and put in. We had to change our name because we had a little trouble with one of the other songs, so Amber put it on as the Spam Risk, all one word, Spam Risk musical group, Magpie.
That was enough. If I get permission to play a little bit of this song, it's a fantastic song. I got it. Once you hear it, I think Peter Broberg, who's also out right now, he sent me the song, and once it's in your head, it's hard to get it out. And
it gets in there pretty easily. It's a pretty clean melody.
And that woman, the girl that sang in the song, let's talk about her for a minute. I mean,
Jen Cancio, she's very good. She's very active musically in this area. She's all over the place. She did a show in Columbiana at the converted theater down there. And it was a very well thought out show, which she talked between songs, and there was a logic to her presentation. Really good band behind her. She's pretty talented. I'm very proud to have her on the Magpie, and then we're going to be doing the next song. It's called The Ballad of Peter Bacon.
Okay, and that's where you got from Peter. We were just talking earlier about Peter Ham.
From Badfinger, yeah. It was kind of written in his honor.
Mm-hmm. I just thought she was phenomenal. Who else played on that song?
On Magpie?
Yeah.
Max Shang from Pennsylvania did the guitar work. I played acoustic guitar. Tim Powell played the upright bass. He's from Warren. And Jen Cancio sang. A young lady named Kristen Solars played the violin. She's magnificent. And Amber did the percussion on that song. And let's see, who else? Pete played the ukulele.
Yeah, you're with our buddy Pete sitting here.
Ukulele.
Yeah. And a video. Let's talk about the video too. You had a video that went along with the song.
Yeah, I would tell Amber, go to this movie, Way Out West, for footage of Laurel and Hardy. Go to Disorder in the Court by the Three Stooges for Larry Fine playing the violin, and the violin solo kicked in. I saw it on TV. There was a Betty Boop cartoon that featured some crows, which is close enough to a magpie, so she borrowed some of that stuff, and the rest she kind of found on her own. But she's the one that really constructed the video. I can't do that.
So you came up with the melody and a tune?
Melody, the words, yeah. Me and my friend Mike Layfield wrote that song.
Mm-hmm. And you knew what you had in mind now of who's going to sing it?
I knew I wasn't going to sing because I wanted somebody really good. So I asked the guy who turned me on to the violinist, Krista, Todd Mackey from Boardman. He recommended Jen Cancio, and she really just sang it beautifully.
So it's a one and done, or I mean, are you going to have like a CD out or an album out?
I'm not sure what to go with it because I have two other songs that are done. Mm-hmm. And also, if you go on YouTube, there's one called When the Levee Breaks, not the Led Zeppelin song. This is an original, also Mike Layfield and I wrote. Same title, though, When the Levee Breaks, and it's also on YouTube also. So that's quite a nice visual experience as well.
Under what? Under what name?
Well, I think Amber reposted it again as the Spam Risk Musical Group.
Okay. So try to put these links in the bottom of the show notes so you can go listen to the to Magpie and the other couple.
When the levee breaks.
When the levee breaks. Anything else coming up? Or
Well, there's one that would cause some trouble. We're not sure why it got flagged, and YouTube removed it. So we haven't decided how to approach putting it back on. The name of that song is "The King Has No Clothes," and it's actually a nice video with that one as well. But we haven't figured out exactly what to do with that to get it back on. And with this other song, there'll be 4 songs. I don't know. Release them? I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Feel like a nice little EP, you know?
Yeah, it's got a good start. I mean, 4 songs. I want to do a copy song or 2. There was a song in the 60s. It was a country and western song out of Nashville. The woman singer was Sandy Posey, and the name of the song was Born a Woman. I'm not sure about the sentiments and the lyrics, but I always thought it was a great melody. It's a very nice production, and I think it can be improved upon. I wouldn't mind trying to do one copy song.
That's all. That's cool.
Well, he can edit that.
I'll take that part out. Yeah. When I break, I'll take me a little farther.
That was when the levee breaks. I was doing this YouTube search to see how easy it is to find these songs. So I typed in spam risk band or spam risk band song.
Musical group is what I think
And
she has
when the
listed.
levee breaks did come up as the first selection, but Magpie didn't come up. So I don't know. I think, but you would have to go to the page, the actual page.
Excuse me.
Well, it's on there too. It's Magpie.
Which is spam risk.
The Spam Risk musical group. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on to the book, the Mayflower project. The Mayflower project. Let's talk a little bit about what was your inspiration of writing this book?
I was watching Carl Sagan on the TV show Cosmos. This was around 1991, possibly. And it was for the first time that somebody really got across to me the hard science of, the hard reality of space travel. You know, I went to bed that night thinking, well, geez, that makes all the science fiction stories and movies and books all just basically nonsense. The distances are too far to think any aliens have ever been on Earth, nor are we ever going to go to any useful distance on a planet. But if you were going to go into deep space, how would you do it? And it occurred to me there's only one way to do it. You'd have to have a spacecraft that would be constructed with the possibility of long-term flight, but also you'd be taking aboard expendable crews. So your task is to repair, machinery, or you might be a doctor. So when you have a child, you train your child to take over your task, and you would do it for literally hundreds of generations over thousands and thousands of years. And that's the plot of the Mayflower project.
So it would have to live on, somebody's giving their life up on that ship, right?
Everybody's
giving their life up until that final destination.
Right.
That's really, I like that. That's interesting.
Well, I thought it was. Nobody ever kind of incorporates that into their stories. It's always battles in space and aliens and kind of undefinable goals and purposes. And the whole purpose of the Mayflower project was to colonize another planet in the star system Tau Ceti. I tried to use real scientific facts as much as possible. So the numbers I came up with were actually calculated numbers of the distance, the speed the craft might go. The Mayflower is the name of the spacecraft, and how long it would take to get there going such and such a speed. It's all carefully thought through and calculated.
Yeah, because you look at shows like Quantum Leap, so they're doing time travel through, like that's more fantasy.
Completely.
Right, completely. So, and I have guests on the show who have lost time through being abducted by aliens or a craft. Now I get that more and more time about time travel. But that's interesting about as far as you would have to create life on that craft,
Right.
to have the life to sustain and have enough food
They have a garden section.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah, everything was thought through. Anything you can think of, believe me, it's in there, or I thought of it. And just to keep the bloodlines open so we don't have, inbred mutants in 1,000 years.
That's another question.
They took aboard sperm and egg frozen to make sure the bloodlines were clear.
That's really well thought through. Yeah, because you would think about, you could have some problems there with inbreeding,
Well, it took me not all together at once, but it took me about 10 years to write it. So I didn't just, dash it off. It was a lot of careful consideration.
So you got that idea from what, watching?
Watching Carl Sagan episode of Cosmos, because he was describing the distances, how far they are from one star to another, the distances. And I thought, well, normal Star Trek, Star Wars kind of fantasy is just that. It's fantasy. But if you did want to travel into deep space, how would you do it? You'd have to do it with generations.
So what was your final destination?
The star system's Tau Ceti. There was felt to be... Tau Ceti, by the way, is a G star, which is like our own sun. And there's a planetary destination that through analysis of the spectrums and radio spectrums that they were able to determine that it has life-giving capabilities, life-supporting capabilities.
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me, I don't know, it's like it's out there, but it's kind of like, could it happen? Probably. I mean,
if it was going to happen, it had to be something like this. The only insurmountable problem with space travel, no matter how far you go or for how long you go, probably the most complicated thing is to solve gravity aboard a spaceship. You can't just tie a loop around something and put weights in your shoes to keep you weighed down. So I come up with something that was a reasonable explanation of how they created a gravitational environment there. But that'd be the most critical thing and maybe insurmountable, the problem of gravity.
And how about how about the fuel for
Nuclear? Yep, turbines.
And you thought about maybe like having that they have that, what you call that, gravitational pull.
Well, one of the nuclear reactors is devoted to life support. One was for travel, and the other was to create the force of gravity. So there's 3 separate nuclear reactors aboard the Mayflower. It's a huge craft. It was so large they actually assembled it in space. They couldn't launch it.
So I mean, you got this idea from the show.
Just the idea of the space travel was one thing from the show.
But what made you the ideas you come up? You ever lay in bed at night and you think about something else, you get up and you write it down?
Well, I actually put that aside for years and years and years. I just thought of it as a scientific mind experiment. I didn't think of it as anything else. But 10 years later, I got to thinking, that is a very compelling plot. I started jotting down ideas. I was thinking originally around the idea of a script, a film. And I still think it'd make a great movie. But I says, no, it's probably easier to get a book published than get a movie made, which isn't necessarily true either.
Well, you never know who's out there listening. So if you're listening, this would be a great movie. I never thought about, making another civilization on this craft. You basically, because you have to make...
Well, they consider themselves another species altogether. They refer to themselves as Homo aloftus, as opposed to Homo sapiens, is what we are. But they consider themselves Homo aloftus. Because what is the nature of being a Homo sapien, who's being born of the earth? Being born in a spacecraft, I guess you're another species.
You're right, and you're talking about, that long distance travel, so a lot of different generations.
30-some thousand years, 216
So how many?
The book ends at 216, generation 216.
So 216 generations.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I thought that my question was like, you'd have to have, a lot of things have to fall in line for that to even happen, like, for women to have the baby, to who's going to father and
all that was
recipient, and
kind of written into it. I kind of took that into consideration.
So I would have jotted something down. A lot of people have on my show did the same thing. They would jot things down that would come to them.
Well, I would do that. I would work at it. I'd take my book to work. And between patients, because I was a dentist, between patients I would, work on the book. I worked on it feverishly at different times.
How many pages is it? Is it in the ebook?
It's available in an ebook form, and the printed form was originally when I had it typed, because I don't type. I had considerably more pages, but they condensed it, and I think got it down to like 178 pages. So it's pretty readable. It's very hard actually to write a book that's self-contained on a spacecraft. There's not a lot you can introduce into the story from outside the craft. In fact, nothing. It all has to take place on the spacecraft.
Right. So the whole story is on that craft.
That's the entire story.
And how big is a craft to
Several miles long.
So it's a big craft.
It's big. To sustain this kind of life.
I was thinking you're talking about a garden and...
Yeah, they have a huge garden section. And
you would have to
a unique way of gardening. And there's no sun, of course, but they use high-intensity lights. And the plants are grown on platforms that rotate up high up into the canopy of the garden, and these platforms rotate.
We're looking at the Mayflower project right now. It's I like the cover.
It took forever to get them to get it right because they kept mucking it up. I finally got them to do it exactly the way I wanted it. I want to introduce the idea of a ship, of course, the Mayflower, but it's in space. So I think it was an interesting, surreal kind of image.
I love the whole concept of it, to tell you the truth. I mean, when Peter Broberg turned me on to your book and your music, he mentioned that you may be a good fit at coming on the show. I agreed, because and after reading a little bit of the synopsis of the book, I'm thinking it's.
Well, the best synopsis is actually that. I spent literally years perfecting that.
It was actually at this point, Carl Elton Cook showed me the back cover of the book, and he is correct. This is probably the best synopsis to get of the book, is the back cover, which he said took him years to put this together. I'm going to read the back cover to you right now, then we'll get back into the interview. The World Space Organization, WSO, has taken over NASA and its ill-fated and underfunded space station program. Adhering to the ambitious goals of the WSO, the Mayflower project becomes an epic journey into the deep space with the purpose of colonizing a planet in the star system Tau Ceti. However, in order to send man's living DNA through this vastness of time and space, the crew must make one supreme and morally corrupt sacrifice. Those aboard will have to reproduce across hundreds of generations, whereby all descendants must bow to the will of their ancestors in order to fulfill the project, culminating in the discovery of the long-forgotten truths about Earth. Generation 216's findings ultimately threaten the Mayflower project. Breaking from traditional forms of science fiction, this strikingly original story embraces the limitations of today's technology, proposing what might happen if we embarked on such a mission today. Departing from the norm of aliens and intergalactic warfare, the Mayflower project takes inspiration from the human drama implicit to the journey, while being a cautionary tale of man's inhumanity towards his fellow man. Yeah, you really should pick this book up. It's fantastic. I'm going to get right back into the interview. Back to author Carl Elton Cook. Well, book two. Any book two in the works, or?
Well, I don't really feel like writing another book. I have another one that was started. I have a short story that was started. I haven't felt like writing. It's very lonely to sit and write. Very, very lonely. And I just haven't felt like doing it. Actually, I have a very good, if this ever becomes a movie, I have a sequel. This would be a fantastic sequel, maybe better than the original.
And writing a screenplay is another whole different ball.
That's a whole other kind of process.
Because now you're talking a whole different type of writing.
But I've had two men. One guy lives in California. His name is Dennis Thomas. He wrote a treatment of the book as a screenplay, and who's become my friend Todd Mackey, who's worked on my songs, was wanting literally to. He says, "Well, it's possible to do it ourselves. To make a movie." And they wanted to get behind it and make a movie. I still think that's a great idea. Just I don't want to necessarily finance it.
Right. You want some
I
type
want
of
somebody else to finance.
right. And that's a key with even everything. So I'm trying to get the financing, and I did that through videography. I have my own video company, and I know what it takes to go through copyrights and
It's very complicated. I think the sequel would be a very good idea to make into a movie. This would be too, but I don't know. I just haven't felt like writing. But that's all in place. I know exactly where that's going to go. But it's very labor intense because I don't type. I have to sit down and write it all out.
yeah. 'Cause my thing is, if you already had the ending of this book already,
Yeah, the ending is. I knew the ending of this before it was way before it was finished.
so how will you continue a book two, or maybe play off of that? That's
It might supersede this if I ever get around to doing it.
we have our friend here, Peter Broberg. Have you read the book, Pete?
Yes, I read it in its early incarnations. I have yet to read the final version, and I agree. I think the dialogue, it's more of an interpersonal relationship. It's the dealings on the craft during this journey.
Yeah, it's the human story.
It's the human story.
Is what's
it's not
important here.
necessarily the actual.
You could have done it on a submarine almost, but it's not the space and the science fiction isn't that important.
So
it's there, it's part of the story.
Right.
But it's the human drama that unfolds.
And it's more of a morality and ethics of
Going into space.
a
to begin
generation
with.
signing up.
I sign up and you sign up, but my kids didn't.
Yeah,
Oh.
you're
And my kids
committing your
didn't, and they're
entire
great
life
kids.
to this project, as well as your subsequent
They're forced to.
generations.
You know your destin's going to be on this craft.
It's your destiny. Your destiny.
Your destin's on this craft.
And then your life has no more meaning than a link in a
So
chain.
there's going to be a lot of people who's going to have that same.
Well, if you're born to the life, that's what you're
a
going
true
to
conviction
accept.
or belief in this concept.
Right.
You had no other choice, though.
That's
If
right.
you're born as an Eskimo into a village in Alaska, you
Right.
got not a heck of a lot of choices.
Well, you're born in this craft. You don't have a choice. I mean,
Zero choice.
yeah. So you know
So
where
you're on board.
Right.
Yeah.
In more ways than one, you're on board.
I don't know. It just struck me just when you were talking about returning to Earth and finding how the humans have evolved. or
They've
changed
evolved,
or
but these
mutated.
folks haven't.
And it clicked in my brain about the old Planet of the Apes series with Charlton Heston,
Mm-hmm.
where now the de-evolution, so to speak, where man has reverted back to the primate. Whether you believe in that concept or not, but just how the things have been reversed, a reversal of.
Yeah, for the drama,
Of the
for the
spe-
sake
of
of
the
the story,
species.
for the sake of the story, there has to be some conflict, and that would be the foundation of it.
one conflict of human life,
Humans,
emotions,
earthbound humans,
even though,
and the spacecraft,
or falling in love with that high school sweetheart. I mean, or going through those type of things. That how would you do? I mean, your life on a craft.
Well, it has to unfold naturally. I didn't want to beat that aspect into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But if your bloodlines are too close, you have to have artificial insemination.
Mm-hmm.
So they keep very careful track of who fathered who beget who beget who. They know the whole entire bloodlines. So when it's possible, you want to marry such and such a gal, fine. Well, what's your bloodlines? Well, they're too close. So you have to do artificial insemination.
You talked about nuclear power to power this craft.
Yes.
How big is that craft? That has to be.
It's huge. It's so big they assembled it in space.
I encourage all of you out there who's listening to read the book. Get the book. It's available at Amazon, paperback.
I would caution people that in the stages in which we did this book, I don't type. And I had several different typists. In fact, my main typist became unavailable for a while. So between first sending the book in for final approval, then they sent it back to me, says, do an edit. I don't know how to. I just said, it was already done once. I think you guys lost the edit. Here, this is it. Go ahead and do it. Well, there's quite a few typos in it.
Well, I was told by
Nothing drastic, but quite a few typos.
I was told by some very professional authors on my show that your readers are very forgiving. So they can look past a few
I don't think
typos.
some of them are even going to notice.
Right, so they'll look past a few of the errors that's in the book,
But it was
If the book's good enough, they're going to keep their attention. They're going to read
it
it.
will hold their attention. But I went through it for the first time. to make all these corrections. I just did it the other day, and I passed that off to Amber, and she very adept with the computer, so she fixed. If there's a mistake in there now in this final edit, I'll eat my hat. Although I don't want to eat my hat.
And even like your story, 1960, we had like Lost in Space and Twilight Zone shows that made you think, what could possibly be out there. And I had a person on my show who said if you look through a straight needle, through that little hole in that straight needle, what you're seeing is our galaxy. So everything outside of that is, can you imagine the realm?
Space is really, really vast. And the conditions in which life could exist on Earth, with all the billions of planets out there, I suppose, billions and billions, there was very likely some other possibilities of life. But however, the idea that it would be anything like humanity is ridiculous, because there's so many tosses of the dice that drove life in our direction on this planet. For probably the first 100 million years, life was no more complicated than bacteriums. And then bacterium became able to consume sunlight and carbon dioxide to produce oxygen. And then maybe another 100 million years before you had parameciums. So it was a very slow, arduous process. Mm-hmm. And then with mass extinctions of dinosaurs, where the little primates weren't quite fully formed yet, and the little mammals running around, who rose. It's endless tosses of the dice. How life took the path it did on Earth. Endless passes of the dice.
And I like the fact that you writing this book, you said you took into account of how long it would take you to get from how many light years, how many years from point A to point B, and
it was 30,000 some years it would have taken to complete the.
And how many generations that was? Over
216 where it stops, though, because there's a crisis and they.
You stopped at 260 or 2.
Well, that's where I stopped the book. But
yeah,
for them to get back to Earth, it's going to be another 216 generations to get back.
Right. So there's a whole nother.
About halfway is where it stops.
Mm-hmm. Well, Carl, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and
I appreciate that.
I appreciate it, and maybe we'll talk again and get you back on. And I want to read the book. And Carl Elton Cook.
Yes.
Go on Amazon, Carl Elton Cook. I'm going to have his links at the bottom of this episode. And thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Ghost in the Valley podcast.